What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we've got some Destiny 2 news and updates, and so in this one, we'll cover some changes this week, as well as clarification on previous patch updates. Plus, Bungie are possibly adding a new feature next season to allow players to catch up on story, cinematics, and key narrative dialogue, so we'll talk about that, plus we also get a little more info on the Checkmate PvP mode, conversation about weapon usage in the game, and players share their concerns about final shape, where some in the community are saying they'll avoid pre-ordering. But on top of that, we'll also cover how the free-to-play version of D2 has had its available content diminished over time, as well as a few other items in the video. So, as always guys, I hope you enjoy this one, and if you do, a rating below really helps us out on the channel. But now, let's get into it. And so up first today, something to keep an eye out for this week, but Bungie have announced they will be releasing a new Developer Insights article, and this one is going to be focused on exotic armor changes for Season 22. And so importantly, there will be a few more updates for pieces of armor. Hopefully those will be broadly positive changes, but in terms of when the article will go live, it's very likely that it's either today, later on Wednesday, or on Thursday before the TWAP, so keep a lookout for that, and as always, it's something I will also keep you posted on. Another quick update right here, and this is separate from the patch that we got this week, but Bungie had said in the update last week that they moved the Guardian rank requirements for the armor charge mods from Guardian rank 6 to 7, and they updated that patch note a couple of times because it was incorrect. And so just keep in mind, the correct patch note is that they removed objectives to rank up from the seasonal vendor from rank 6 to allow all players to access armor charge mods. So there are no longer season-specific requirements to get those, and they are things that all players should have access to. Also, moving to this week, it's worth mentioning we did have a couple of extra patch changes, and Bungie adjusted Unstoppable Champions in Battlegrounds to allow all kills to properly be counted in the Battleground Moon Nightfall. But they also increased drop rates for the In Memoriam Ghost Shell from Trials of Osiris, and made a change that enables players to claim the It's in the Cards reward from Soraya Hawthorne. So just a couple of patch changes worth reiterating right there. On top of that, this week we got a pretty juicy Eververse store, as we covered in the vendor video yesterday. And players have pointed out that the Ego Malign shader, which was available for Bright Dust this week, was originally added as part of the Bada Hamkara Silver Bundle last season. And some players are naturally frustrated because they purchased the Silver Bundle with real cash, and now of course it's available for Bright Dust. And I totally understand that frustration, but of course it is something we've seen Bungie do multiple times, including on items in the same season, so while it's a bit annoying, it certainly isn't anything new. It is however positive that more of this season's items are coming up for Bright Dust at the moment, so be sure to check in with the Eververse store this week if you don't want to miss out on the opportunity to grab some of the new ornaments and things like that. Up next though, something interesting right here, and someone pointed out on Reddit that based on 2 recent comments, it's possible that Bungie will be adding an in-game cutscene archive next season. So in the state of the game, they said Season 22 will include new ways to experience key in-game moments in Destiny 2's history to help get millions of Guardians caught up for the confrontation with the Witness. And presumably that isn't referencing specific gameplay content, and so it indicates that something with cutscenes is entirely possible. And on top of that, Bungie had also said that for those wondering, the Witness cinematic will continue to be viewable in-game after Year 6 of Destiny 2 concludes. And of course, the content that actually triggers that cutscene will be removed at the end of the year because it's seasonal content, which further indicates the possibility that Bungie will be adding some kind of archive that allows players to view older cutscenes. So it's certainly an interesting comment and an interesting possibility, and for players who want to view those cutscenes again in-game, or of course see them for the first time, it could be a pretty good quality of life update. Next up though, Quantum Riot on Reddit also pointed out that inside of the API, it appears that the Checkmate game mode already has some rules listed, and of course this is a new mode that's going to go live with Season 22. So looking at what's visible in the API, the Checkmate modifiers include that ability recharge time is slowed, but on top of that, that special ammo is earned by engaging in combat, and it is not lost on death. It also lists Checkmate Control and Survival as specific game modes, and Bungie have also said that primary weapon damage has been tuned to feel different from the rest of the game, reducing the gap between the faster killing weapons and the average time to kill, and in general pushing longer range primaries into slower killing profiles, with increased player health and all ability cooldowns lengthened, which should result in slightly longer combat encounters that reward skill and consistency. And some players have said, doesn't this sound a little bit like the vanilla version of Destiny 2 PvP? And I guess to an extent that is true, but of course it will be interesting to see a more primary weapon focused combat mode inside of Destiny 2 PvP, so give us your thoughts on that. It's also curious that rules for that game mode are already in the API, so it's something Bungie have been playing around with for a while. Here though, there was a conversation and a reply from the Destiny 2 team to a thread that said there are over 500 weapons weapons in Destiny 2 that aren't sunset, and that 10.7% of players used the Immortal in Trials this past week. And so the Destiny 2 weapons team said, this week the Immortal Adept had 7.2% of kills in Trials, from week 1 of returning Trials all the way to week 60. The number 1 weapon had less than 7% of kills only once, and that more than 9% of kills 49 times, with more than 10% of kills 33 times, and more than 14% of kills 10 times. And they say in the 80 weeks since then, we've done a pretty good job of keeping the number 1 weapon between about 4 to 9%, which is a very typical Trials weekend. And we've had some exceptions, of course, but nothing individually has gone over 12%. Jade Rabbit on Eternity and Telesto one weekend both hit 11%, and DMT during its peak and the Immortal Adept in the first few weeks it were out were both around 10%. But other than that, top weapons have been less than 9% every week. And if we look back at the other times that Endless Vale was the Trials map, while Immortal was in the game back in April, the 2 Immortals combined for 22% of all kills, then in May they were 15.5%, and this weekend they were 9.8%. So it isn't accurate to say that recent balance changes have made no effect. And the last thing we'd like to point out, it's important to remember that Trials is not indicative of the PvP sandbox as a whole, and in fact is a very different sandbox to other playlists like Comp or Control. When we step back and look at the wider Crucible sandbox without Trials, the Immortals combine to around 5% of kills, which has them on par with things like Ace of Spades and Centrifuge. So some interesting additional insights from Bungie right there, and they've definitely shrunk the gap between the top performing weapons and other selections in the game. So some of those adjustments arguably are working, and we're going to see yet more adjustments moving forward in Season 22 and beyond. So give us your thoughts about that down in the comments section. But in other news, and this is something we spoke about yesterday, Destiny Bulletin shared that a Destiny 2 leak reveals the next returning raid in Season 22. And these supposed leaks come from what are typically the most reliable sources we've had in recent times for Destiny 2 leaks, and they have said that Crota's End will be the returning raid. Of course, we have to take that with a pinch of salt because it isn't confirmed by Bungie, and there are totally other possibilities, but I'd like to get your thoughts down below on the potential of Crota's End coming back. I know a lot of players were hoping for Wrath of the Machine, and I really hope that that comes back at some point in Destiny 2's lifecycle in general. Again, it is not confirmed by any means, but the leaks are saying that Crota's End will be the featured raid for Season 22. So let us know what you think about it down below, and if you want a bit of a nostalgia trip back to Crota's End, I did make a video yesterday which I'll link in the description box as well, showing off a little bit of the raid, some of the rewards, and discussing possible changes, so that is linked down below as well. Following on from the recent discourse in the community though, in relation to Bungie's approach to upgrading and making content for Destiny, and also following the State of the Game post last week, Sportskeeda shared that Destiny 2 players are looking to protest by not purchasing the Final Shape expansion. And there's a Reddit thread right here that says don't pre-order the Final Shape. It certainly has gained a little bit of traction. Of course, it doesn't represent the entirety of the community, and I'd say that players are entitled to do what they desire when it comes to purchasing games and content, but there definitely is some negative sentiment right now, and I'm curious to get thoughts from you guys. Will you be pre-ordering Final Shape, or are you perhaps waiting for the showcase before you do that? The players in the thread are making the point that we can essentially speak with our wallets, and if pre-orders for Final Shape are very low, the hope is that Bungie will notice that and realize that they're going to have to change their approach to Destiny 2 content and take more of the community's commentary on it more seriously. But of course, we don't know what this particular margin of the Destiny player base will be able to impact with an action like that. Obviously, the folks who congregate on Reddit and social media around Destiny, or indeed watch YouTube content like this, they don't make up for the entirety of the Destiny player base. So I've no doubt that Final Shape will get lots of pre-orders, but that doesn't mean that the community can't affect that situation. My personal position is that I will be pre-ordering Final Shape. I make Destiny content for a living, so that's one component. The other component is that as a standalone expansion and an experience, I've played everything else in the Light and Darkness saga for Destiny, so personally I do want to play this final expansion in the saga, and I'm very curious to see how Bungie handle that, what the quality of the storytelling will be, as well as the content, the new destination and all the other stuff. It's a really important moment for a lot of players, and for me personally, I totally plan to play it. Obviously I can't speak to how the expansion will play out, we don't really know what it even contains yet, but I'd be curious to get your thoughts down below, and I think the showcase will be a very important moment that'll either tip players in one direction or the other. But let us know what your plans are down in the comments section. Further on the subject of content and the community sentiment right now, Paul Tassi from Forbes pointed out on Twitter just how much of Destiny 2's free-to-play content is no longer available to players. And essentially players are saying that Destiny 2 isn't really free-to-play at all. So when you look at what was advertised as free-to-play when it originally transitioned to a free-to-play title, we can see it included campaigns like Red War, Curse of Osiris, Warmind, Black Armory Forges, Gambit Prime, the Menagerie, but also Year 1 raids, in-game events, and these are the seasonal ones like the Dawning, the Revelry, and Solstice of Heroes, and access to all Crucible playlists, but given that lots of content has been switched around, that is pretty much whittled down to Year 1 Nightfall strikes. Of course, Gambit, which is still in the game but isn't really receiving any content or updates, and the basic strikes playlist, as well as access to destinations, at least in terms of free roam. But otherwise, a lot of the free-to-play content has now been removed from the game or reworked in some capacity. So it is certainly a very bare bones free-to-play title, and one which apparently, according to folks who've jumped back in on free-to-play accounts, absolutely ram-packed with adverts and suggestions to purchase content, which is sort of predictable I suppose, but it's interesting nonetheless. If there are any folks with free-to-play accounts, I would be curious to get your experiences with that. Safe to say though, there is a lot of content that is no longer available to those players. No idea whether Bungie plans to still revamp the kind of onboarding and new light experience. It's something I haven't really spoken about too much for a little while, but share your thoughts down below. Of course, we've had lots of conversation pieces in this video. I think that just speaks to how the community is feeling right now, and of course, the point in the season that we're at, where we're really just waiting for new information about Season 22, the final shape, and all of that stuff. So for today, that's what we've got, guys. As always, I hope you've enjoyed the video though. Let us know your thoughts down in the comment section, and drop a like rating down below if you have enjoyed it, as it really supports us on the channel. Also, if you want to be kept up to date with more Destiny 2 content, feel free to get subscribed and I'll keep you posted. But otherwise, I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.